I'd love to sit around and chit chat a little bit. I've got a ton of video and I don't want this episode to turn into a long one. So we got to get right to it. This is about the Democrat strategy to hunt Trump. This is our counter strategy against the left to end leftism forever. And also how the left has even come into our churches, turning them woke to destroy America from inside of its heart and soul. Here's Jen Psaki with James Comey. Especially listen to Comey saying how he wanted to hunt the J6ers. This is from 2023.
Do you agree with the strategy of focusing on the Oath Keepers and focusing on prosecuting that group of individuals first in order for it to be a deterrent?
You've got to throw the net wide, get all of them, both the organized groups, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, but find everybody who went into that building. Find them all. Again, not because of my concern that those people who committed a misdemeanor they're going to go into the community and reoffend. The message has to be sent of zero tolerance. We will find everyone and punish everyone who went in there so that no one does it again. We will hunt you to the end of the earth, even for a misdemeanor, and make you pay for that to send that message.
That's the head of the FBI giving us our strategy. Thank you, James Comey. Did you hear that? Trump needs to throw the net wide, hunt them to the ends of the earth, even for a misdemeanor, to set a precedent so that as a deterrent, so that Democrats never do this again. Welcome to Doug in Exile. I'm going to teach you guys about the strategy right now, how Trump really doesn't have to get Comey. This is to flush people out. So one of the counter narratives, who I like a lot, is Andrew McCarthy, a very smart guy, but he is friends with Comey. And so he does not like that his buddy is getting pursued. So Andy McCarthy is backstabbing, I believe, justice, even though he's one of the smartest, greatest constitutional scholars I can think of. I also think he's kind of dirtbagging here. You remember in the movie Goodfellas, when they would talk about these mafia guys, they go, they're good fellas. Someone like Comey, if you sat down and had a cup of coffee with him, you'd go, oh, what a nice guy. But he lied about the president, hates America, and tried to undermine our institutions. Here's McCarthy saying that this case is not going to win against Comey. And in the next clip, I'll show you why it doesn't matter.
Andy, your take.
I love Ted, but McCabe never said that Comey authorized it. What McCabe said was that McCabe authorized it. This is a leak to the Wall Street Journal. And then he told Comey about it later. The only way that you could convict Comey beyond a reasonable doubt is Comey would have to truly believe that he personally had authorized the leak. He would have to actually have authorized the leak, and then he would have had to know that he was lying when he denied it to the Senate. They're not even going to be able to prove that he authorized the leak because by all accounts, he didn't. So I don't think this case even gets to trial.
All right. So then.
Okay, hold on. Don't get all disheartened, guys. You've heard me say this before. The process is the trial. That's an old saying about communists. I don't know if it was Orwell or Franz Kafka that said that. The process is the punishment. That is, going after Comey is what we want. I want him to lawyer up, to have to defend himself, even though he's going to be seen as a hero to the left. He's going to be seen as their little persecuted Christ figure. Good. There's other good coming out. We have to start setting a precedent with this guy. Some of the best good that's coming out is that now people in the FBI are provided cover and announcement by the Trump administration going after Comey, where they go, we're not alone. We can come out finally. And they're coming out in droves, according to Michael Flynn.
We got whistleblowers coming out of the woodwork, and we're funneling it into the right governmental offices to do the right things. And let me tell you, these people are busted. And so for Jim Comey, that's what I said earlier. Jim, if you get this message, start thinking about what you're gonna give up, because you're gonna give up some of your freedom because you're gonna go to jail. You must go to jail because of what you did. But maybe they'll cut you a little bit of a deal, and they'll put you in a softer prison for a shorter period of time because you're able to give up some evidence on some of these other people who are even more deeper than you.
Yeah, rat them out, sweat them out, rat on each other. That's what Fonnie Willis did that's why they have 18 people indicted for RICO charges down in Fulton County. It had nothing to do with them being involved with anything. It's they want them to turn on each other to start. It's how you shake out names. It's part of what they all do, always do this, because first of all, our system of government's corrupt. Our court systems are corrupt. This is a shakedown. And all I can say is, if they did it to Trump, then we have to do it to them. So I'm with Flynn on this one. Comey, start giving up names. Rat out your friends. Who do you know? What do you know? Maybe we'll go easy on you. We got to play some good cop, bad cop with Comey. It'd be a shame to put you in a cell with Bubba, if you know what I mean.
In this, because Jim, you know exactly who I'm talking about.
Jim Comey, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Who is Flynn talking about? I honestly don't know. But he's telling Comey, you know exactly what name to rat out. Who's the name that Comey has to rat out? Is it Hillary? Is it Barack? I'm just guessing. I don't know. But the good news is we can flush more names out, because one name is almost certainly this guy, John Brennan. I'm not going to bother with him lying on camera again. But this is General Mike Flynn tweeting, "You're next," he says to John Brennan. "You're next, Brennan. And if you're scared, say you're scared." And he tweeted this to Pam Bondi, who's a hammer, and Kash Patel. This is strategy, guys. This is what the left has been doing to our institutions, including our churches, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But first, here's Mike Lee tweeting, based Mike Lee. Former FBI Director Christopher Wray deceived America. Trump is calling him out. Guys, the list is growing, and that's why it's more important to indict and go after Comey than even to win that case. You're going to see hundreds of names come out, guys. As Comey said, we're going to cast that net wide and pursue them to the end. You ain't seen nothing, guys. This is the beginning. It was just revealed that FBI had secretly placed, against all rules, regulations, protocols, and standards, 274 FBI agents into the crowd just prior to and during the January 6th hoax. Now, we've been hitting around this for a long time. Dan Bongino's done it. They've said there were a ton of feds there. The only question is, were they merely there to run security, or were they not there to help incite the violence against Trump? What if? That's a what if. Because now we have them all on camera too. We can find out who the agents were. We can see if they removed barriers or if they let people in, invited them in to the Capitol building. This is different from what Director Christopher Wray said over and over again. That's right. As it turns out, FBI agents were at and in the January 6th protest. Guys, this is from the President of the United States today, probably acting as agitators and insurrectionists. You only need one on camera to make that claim, but certainly not as law enforcement officials. Now, this case they're going to roll out. January 6th, it has thousands of victims. People who had their phones spied on. We had our FBI in the crowd now, Trump confirms. This is a mess. And, you know, Dan Bongino has done a lot of work on the alleged pipe bomb they found that they think could have been planted also. I don't want to go into the conspiracies. You guys know I hate conspiracy theories, so you can trust me on this. I'm not going to give you a bunch of scaremongering. And what about the pipe bomb? What about, EPS? I'm just going to report the news as it comes out, guys. But Trump reinforcing this, saying 274 FBI agents, and now Christopher Wray was lying. I want to know who each and every one of these so-called agents are. They're going to have to answer to Kash Patel and Bongino, and what they were up to on that now historic day. Many great American patriots were made to pay a very big price only for the love of their country. I owe this investigation of dirty cops and crooked politicians to them. Christopher Wray, the then director of the FBI, has some major explaining to do, Lucy. That's two in a row, Comey and Wray. Comey and Wray, two corrupt FBI heads who got caught lying with our great country at stake. We can never let this happen to America again. Indict Christopher Wray. Get him, as Comey said, to the ends of the earth to make an example out of him. You have to cast that net wide. Here's more. President Trump has ordered Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide troops and use full force if necessary in Portland. That means live ammo they can use. Here's Trump cleaning up Portland, bringing the army in there. So just so you know the sequence of events, right? First, Trump declares Antifa a terrorist group, domestic terrorist group. Now, once they're an official terrorist group, he can bring in our army to fight them. See how that works? At the request of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, I am directing the Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa. That stands for anti-fascist, even though they're very much fascists, but they claim that they're anti-fascist. They said, we punch Nazis and all that. They're the one guys all in black masks. You know, they throw fireworks at cops and stuff like that. And other domestic terrorists, I am also authorizing full force, pew, pew, if necessary. Thank you for your attention on this matter. Wait. Here's J.D. Vance. All the different prongs of these terrorists are being investigated and rolled out. This one is on the funding, which is go to George Soros for these violent groups.
People want to see people go to jail for this.
Well, first of all, people will go to jail for this, but the President of the United States has made very clear we're taking.
There's a prediction, guys. People are going, nothing ever happened. No one goes to jail. J.D. Vance says people are going to jail for this. That's his prediction. I'll go with J.D. Vance over you if you don't mind.
In a whole of government approach to this, we're looking at the funding networks. We're looking at the people who are inciting violence. We're looking at the people who are promoting and encouraging violence. That takes time to do it the right way, Laura. We're going to make sure that we do this the right way.
With First Amendment
I understand.
concerns.
Of course, you have to protect people's First Amendment rights. You have to protect people's free speech rights. But the First Amendment does not protect imminent incitements to violence. If you are actively promoting your fellow man to kill other people, that is not protected by the First Amendment, and we have to be clear about that. We have to go after that stuff.
And I couldn't show the video clips of Antifa, but I have Antifa. It was so full of cuss words, it would get me a strike. But they were on the streets saying F ICE, kill ICE. That's what they were saying on the streets. That's an incitement to violence. J.D. Vance said those people can go to jail. They're all going to be investigated. They're going to be rounded up, and that's going to end. Now I want to talk to you about the woke virus. This is about woke extremism, extremely violent rhetoric. And what it did was it made its way into our FBI. If you follow my show and you subscribe, and you should, you'll know that the woke also has already infiltrated not just the FBI, but our university. You've heard me rail on the teachers' unions for years. I'm an artist, and they took away my ability to make a living in the arts. It's why I opened some of these videos with some of my artwork. They took that from me. They took it from me because of my right-leaning politics. And so I want their party destroyed. I'm going to make sure the Democrat Party never is a viable party in public ever again. But here's Voddie Baucham, who just passed the day before yesterday. I love him so. He's talking to one of my favorite preachers also, Doug Wilson. These are two Christian nationalists that the left and the woke in all of your churches, including the Nazarene church, which I was growing up in, wants you terrified of Christian nationalism. I'm going to show you how it's a fraud, and those churches are all leftist cover groups, and you need to leave those churches.
I wasn't hearing about Christian nationalism till all of a sudden, when the whole woke, social justice, racial justice, when people began to stand up against that, and they began to demand receipts and began to push back, and the people who were holding on to that ideology didn't have an argument anymore, all of a sudden there was just this shift, and it was as though it happened overnight. Kind of like, when all of the woke stuff was going on, and, before Fault Lines came out, I was speaking on a lot of that stuff, and, it was, everybody's talking about we need to elevate Black voices, and people would go, well, what about Voddie?
Yeah. What about Voddie Baucham? We need to elevate Black voices. Here's Voddie Baucham, a Black preacher. The problem is he's a Christian nationalist and reformed, and he believes the Bible's actually true, and he's against the gay agenda. So what about Voddie? When they said we need to elevate Black voices, think about Black Lives Matter. For 4 years of that violence, when they destroyed the cities, and everyone's going, give them a microphone, and white people bow down. There were white people bowing to them here in Nashville. One of my friends bowed. They said, hey, everyone bow down right now to this black speaker. And all the followers, people who are supposedly in the arts, rock and rollers, punk rockers, they bowed to a black man. So they were treated like a king. But Voddie, what about his voice? Because he's a biblical Christian. This is how it works, guys. If you're a biblical Christian, they do not want to hear your black voice. They call you an Uncle Tom. You've seen it with Clarence Thomas. They hate black people's guts. The left hate Democrats, your pulpit that says don't bring politics into the church, but let's bring all these sensitive black voices to talk about Black Lives Matter. They hate this black man's guts because he'll stand up there and say, I'm against gay marriage.
What about Voddie? Well, not his.
That's right. He's too black.
Not his. Not.
He's a little too black. Look at him.
Not his.
Not his voice. Wrong voice. God bless. We're doing a little bit of a fundraiser for his family. He has a wife and 9 kids that are now in need of funding. So I'm helping them out a little bit where we can. But wait, there's more on Voddie. This is Chad O. Jackson on Voddie being a Christ follower. And because of that, because he was a Christ follower, all the black radicals had to ignore his voice. Wait till you hear this, because this is a warning. They needed Marxism in the church. Woke Marxism, liberalism, Democrats were coming to the church, to the pulpit, to your pulpit. Walk out of that church or stand up and start yelling on Sunday morning, my people.
Voddie wasn't the stereotypical black minister. Wasn't a lot of emotion. Wasn't a lot. The noises that black ministers make and all. He was somewhat like a college professor. I look at John Hadley, and one of our producers kept pointing out this morning, is like, hey man, there's the Griot, the Root, these black media sites, they're not even writing stories about Voddie passing. And it's almost like they wanted Chad to keep Voddie a secret.
And Voddie, I just got to say, look at me. Look at my white skin. I'm white as paper. I look like the butt of a newborn baby bird, pink. Voddie, black as can be, is one of my greatest pastoral heroes ever. Had nothing to do with his or my skin color. That's something that is totally alien to the left and Democrats. They're like, you're only your skin color. You're only your identity politics. You're only gay, woman, black. You're only that. I'm a meritocracy. I'm like, what is the truth coming out of your mouth? Well, Voddie was one of my favorite all-time speakers. He actually humbled me when I heard him talk. It made me want to shut up and never talk again. That's the effect that he had on me. He was so great, one of my heroes. Died 2 days ago, suddenly of some kind of a heart attack or something. But now all his videos are online, so we get to enjoy him forever. But after his death, not one leftist black publication will talk about him, though he is a world-altering ninja, a super famous person among the right, among the white right. That's why they don't talk about him. He's a biblical black minister.
Absolutely spot on. I mean, Voddie been on CNN all of one time, and they told him we'll have you back, and they never had him back because of how he was able to embarrass them just by leading into the Word of God, quite frankly. When you look at black pastors, typically what comes to mind are your Jamal Bryants, your TD Jakeses, your even Eric Masons. I know Eric Mason had beef with Dr. Voddie Baucham, even going so far as to, in one of his sermons, use kind of slave vernacular, basically accusing Voddie Baucham of making up words like ethnic Gnosticism to protect white supremacy. Just this utter nonsense.
Massa, I ain't like the other Negroes.
Massa, I ain't like the other Negroes. That's what this satanic fraud says of Voddie Baucham. How dare you, sir? Massa, racist much? You pig?
Master, eyes over his. We Massa feeds us. Massa clothes us. cultural Marxism, ethnic Nazism. They're making up words to come against the fact that racial injustice exists.
Again, Voddie Baucham was one of the few pastors that I know of to call out how these ideologies are infiltrating and subverting God's people and how we need to be made aware of them. The Bible says to test every spirit to see if it's of God. And that's what Voddie was doing from behind the pulpit. And he wasn't doing with all this hooping and hollering or anything like that. He was doing it in a very effective way. When you look at his cadence, when you look at his pacing, when you just listen to him, here was a man who was authoritative in what he was saying, and he was completely loyal to Christ. But when you look at a lot of those who came out against him, Eric went on to write a book called Woke Church, which...
Ready for this? This is the guy going around going massa, massa, wrote a book called Woke Church, an urgent call for Christians in America to confront racism and injustice. This is just wokeism.
In my opinion, muddles the waters and kind of blurs the lines, if you will, between Marxism and Christianity.
It blurs the line between Marxism and Christianity. Guys, they made it into our church. The Marxist plague, the woke mind virus, is all over our churches. Our men are effeminate. It's also feminism, which is also Marxism. That's why the men in your church don't talk. Men, they don't speak up. They just sit there and cower. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. I don't want to be divisive. I don't want to raise my voice. It's satanic. I can't turn over a table. Even though Jesus did it, I don't know what he was thinking on that day, but I would never even touch a table. In fact, I'm eating at the table I should be turning over right now. Voddie Baucham, absolute firestorm, amazing evangelist. This is about Christian nationalism. The left is terrified of Christian nationalism because we want to put our nation under Christ. That's what Charlie Kirk stood for. That's what Voddie Baucham stood for. Here's more on it.
Well said, Virgil. Okay, Ryan. So here's my response to that. For 20 plus years, multiple past decades, we look at the demography of America and the changing religious environment here, and so many leading pastors and book writers and Christian thinkers said there's nothing we can do about it. We're becoming more secular. Postmodernity is winning. Our Christian faith seems no longer plausible to people. And so we have to meet people where they are. They took a approach.
You'll hear your pastor talk this way. Walk out of that church. We have to meet people where they are, meaning change our verbiage so it's not as offensive. Christ is so offensive. If you speak just the scriptures, I can almost get in a fight even with Christians just by speaking the scriptures. They're so offensive. And they said, we're going to meet people where they're at and not try to scare them away so much. Let's bring the trans people into our church. They can take communion with us, and Abomination can take communion with us so long as people don't think we're mean.
Of trying to relate to liberalism, and even as liberalism accelerated into this arguably demonic progressivism, Charlie Kirk went out there and rebuked it.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk used conservative politics as an on-ramp to the gospel. The seeker-sensitive movement tried to offer the gospel as an off-ramp to leftism.
They sacrificed the gospel. Your pastors did. Charlie Kirk is not a pastor, but he saved more people than the pastors did of the last 40 years. He was incredible. Wait, there's more. Here's British from Britain, Jamie Bambrick. British evangelical elites have chosen this week, after the Charlie Kirk Memorial and the Unite the Kingdom rally, during both of which the gospel was clearly shared, they decided to go after Christian nationalism. British evangelicals, these are our brothers and sisters, guys, stabbing us in the back, terrified of Charlie Kirk's mission. They didn't go after digital IDs. They didn't go after high-profile arrests for tweets of an old lady being carted off by police for silently standing too near an abortion clinic, for the lady that got imprisoned for silently praying on the streets outside of an abortion clinic. No, no, no. The British evangelicals are evangelicals. Same thing here in America. Same thing here in America. These are all trivialities, apparently, but God forbid our working class should long for a return to God. And God forbid the church should wholeheartedly support it, both because it's vastly preferable to the dark, leftist, secular totalitarianism we are facing, and because it's a generational opportunity to preach the gospel to our youth. Then he quotes from C.S. Lewis from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Quiet down, everyone. Back to sleep with you, Thrum. thrum, thrum goes the witch's mandolin. There never was any Narnia. There never was any sky. There never was any world but this dark, wintry death. They want you to think this woke bullcrap in your church, in your country, in your public schools, brainwashing your children's minds to say a man and a woman are interchangeable in the institution of marriage. They're interchangeable. A man and a man that cannot create a baby is the exact same thing as a man and a woman that do create a baby. It's madness. They want you to think, like that poem ended, that this is how Narnia always was. It was always winter. The witch was always in control. No, it's new. I'm telling you, it's new. And if you and I don't peacefully but firmly, like Voddie Baucham, stand up against it and say, not in my church, no more. Or as for me and my family, we will go and serve the Lord at a church down the street. I left a church during COVID. Good people here in the South. Sorry, got nothing for you. They were too complicit to the BLM racism, too complicit to the COVID standards. I left them because I knew my family wasn't safe among woke Christians. I'm dug in exile.